Let's get started. So to preface this training, we just have some preliminary guidance on how to take in this type of training. So this training course is designed and intended for district administrators. There are no prerequisites for this course. However, attendees are expected to be very familiar with navigating RMS, entering data in RMS, and be familiar with the knowledge of governing regulations. Upon conclusion of this training, attendees should expect to gain a deeper understanding for how RMS works, why RMS works the way it does, and gain insight on how to teach fellow RMS users. This training material can also be used as a resource for internal district training as well. All right, and so here we have our agenda. First, I will do a recap of what we covered in the last Train the Trainer session, and then we'll do an overview of today's topics to introduce those, which will be the paperless contract file, or PCF, document packages, daily reports, RFIs and correspondence, submittals, and the import and export module. We'll also have some references listed at the end of this presentation. And as I mentioned previously, at the end of each section, we'll break for any questions to be asked or discussion to be held. Okay, so before we start with today's topics, we thought it'd be a good idea to just do a brief catch up on what was covered in the previous Train the Trainer session. So last time we basically tried to cover a lot of the beginner basics for administrators within RMS. And part of that was setting up staff records. Also recently, we did notice that there was an increase in help desk tickets coming in referencing issues with user access. And those issues were stemming from incomplete staff records. So real quick, I just want to highlight some of the stuff on the staff records here. On this slide, we're looking at an incomplete staff record. You can see no CAC is linked, non-CAC login has not even been enabled, and no rights have been granted to the user at the bottom of the screen here. So in order to complete a staff record fully and allow the user to log in and access all of the areas that they need to work in, if they're a CAC user, that 10-digit DoD ID number on the back of the CAC has to be entered. And then if it's a non-CAC login, the user's email address will also be required. And so I would like to focus on the bottom part for the office and contract rights. So when it comes to completing a staff record, it is possible that these areas can be overlooked. Sometimes it may look like something was completed, like a user was granted rights, but that has not occurred. So what we want to see are the signifiers of rights having been granted. So below we see where the user has actually been granted rights within RMS. So these bars turn blue, and there's an identifier identifying what kind of role or rights that the user has. So as we can see on the office rights section, the bar is blue and it shows that they're a full office administrator. And then in the contract rights, they have access to all contracts, and this contract user role is listed. So in the contract rights section, the bar will turn blue if you select like the district-wide radio button, but if there is no contract user role listed here, the user will not have been granted any rights. And so all this to say, please just make sure that any staff records you set up are fully complete and everything is linked for the user to be able to log in and access all of the different areas that they need to access to complete their work. Okay, also in the last session, we reviewed how to archive and unarchive contracts. So to archive a contract, you can either do that in the contract selection view using the archive button as shown there. And then you can also select that will bring up a contract lookup where you can select the contract you'd like to archive. And you can also archive from within the actual archived contracts module from the district office menu. It'll be about the same situation. You'll click on Archive a Contract, and it will bring up a contract lookup for you to select to archive. All right. Okay, and we also reviewed adding prime contractors so that they can be added to a contract. Some of this information must be filled out before the before the prime contractor can be added to a contract, while some of the information can be entered within the contract itself by the prime contractor, like the home office information. The UEI number, the CAGE code, and the NAICS code, or the North American Industry Classification System code, will be entered here if available. At the bottom of the screen, contracts linked to the prime contractor are listed, if there are any. And also in the contractor staff tab at the bottom, contractor staff can be added, edited, and/or deleted. The government must enter the first contractor staff member, and they should be added as an administrator so that any further information and contract staff can be added by them upon completion of the prime contractor setup in the district office. If you are deleting a prime contractor, please make sure that this area right here, the contracts that are linked to the prime contractor, is empty. That will cause some headaches if you delete a prime contractor who is in fact associated with contracts. Following prime contractor setup, we also looked at contract setup and reviewed each of the tabs in that submodule. So we reviewed the administration and funding tab, which is where you can identify CFMs, P2, and PCF links and determine how to track QC and select a funding method. The payment modifications tab is where you can identify payment timeframes and signatures for modifications. The quality assurance tab is used to identify quality assurance report type or types and information regarding adverse weather delays. The submittals and schedules tab is where you can identify details for documentation review periods and submittal register setup. And you can also specify the type of contractor schedule to be used for the contract. Dredging is where you can identify a contract as a dredging contract and enable all the stuff needed for that type of contract. And then finally, the CUI tab, which is where the contract's CUI requirements can be addressed. After contract setup, we reviewed subcontractor setup. The contractor is the one to fill out all the required information on this view, which is similar to the prime contractor edit view. So all the naming information, address, trade, phone information, and the amount assigned to the contract can be entered here. Once all the information is filled out for the subcontractor to start generating payrolls, the first day on site must be entered and the payrolls required checkbox has to be checked. We also reviewed how to build a PDT or a project delivery team and how to add, edit, and delete staff members to that team. Users, if a PDT member needs to be edited, you can just double click on the member or select it and click on the edit button. The staff member and position titles can be edited from there as well. And finally, we also reviewed some personally identifiable information guidance. So to access these three submodules, the contract file, contractor payrolls, and labor interviews, users have to maintain and complete annual personally identifiable information or PII training, since these areas may in fact contain PII. If the user is a non-CAC user, this training expiration date has to be manually entered into the staff record by the PII admin for the district. But if the user is a CAC user, the PII training is automatically tracked through the mandatory annual security training that is completed for CAC users. So no dates need to be entered for the CAC users. Those dates are automatically maintained through the user's CAC. Okay, so that concludes our recap of the previous session. We do have a video on YouTube for that previous session. So if you have any further questions about that, please go ahead and check that out. There was some discussion and Q&A that occurred during that session. And like I said, we tried to hit the beginner basics of what it takes to be an RMS district administrator. And we did that in a lot more detail than I just covered. So if you weren't able to make the previous session or just would like to share it with other users, that video is available on our RMS YouTube training channel. And so moving on from the recap, we will do an overview of today's topics. So for today's session, we're really going to be focusing on the documentation aspects of RMS. So I'm going to run through these one more time, and then we'll move on to the first topic. So PCF, all documents must be sent here due to DoD mandate, and all of this documentation that is sent to PCF can be found in the contract file. Document packages are all throughout RMS. I'm sure you're very familiar with them. They're the main type of container that RMS uses for documentation gathering. Daily reports. This is the documentation tracking for QA and QC reporting. We'll also look at RFIs, or requests for information, and correspondence. These areas will contain tracking of RFIs and other communication between the government and contractor. Also, we will take a look at submittals, so submittal and transmittal tracking for contract deliverables and the Submittal Register. And finally, we'll take a look at the capabilities that are available in the import and export module. Okay, so first up is the paperless contract file, or PCF. So what is PCF? It is a secure web-based application designed and certified to store official contract files as required per FAR subpart 4.8. As a web-based records management application, it is not approved for classified information. So no classified information should be uploaded into RMS or sent to PCF. So please make sure to adhere to that policy. RMS has a one-way data flow to PCF, and so that means that any documents generated in RMS are sent to PCF. It does not work the other way around. PCF is the required repository for all official contract documentation, and as I mentioned earlier, the contract file documents the contract file contains all of those documents that are sent to PCF. Documents are automatically placed in the appropriate PCF folder, and additional documents can be manually added as well to the contract file. Okay, so looking at the contract file, this is where all the official documents for the contract are stored and uploaded to PCF. The folders and subfolders have to be manually added after contract award. Government signed documents will automatically be uploaded to the correct contract file folder. And contractor signed documents for some modules will have to be manually loaded to the contract file folder. So here we're showing the screen setup for the contract file. There are several ways to group and filter the items here. So let's take a look at the application real quick. Okay, so I'm in my contract and we'll go to contract file. So as you can see, it's all consolidated here right now. This is the default view whenever you enter this submodule. If you'd like to just expand everything, you can click on this expand button right here. And then if you'd like to go back to that default view, you can collapse everything as well. If you notice the grouped by buttons up here, so this is how it is grouped by default. However, you can change this if you'd like. So if you'd like to, you can still group by folder, but you'd like to group by something other than subfolder, you can drag this column title up here, and it will group it by that subset of documents rather than subfolder. And then you can do that with all of these columns as well. Okay. And so one caveat for contract file, there's a note here, and then this next slide is dedicated to this. So the caveat is the deletion of documents specifically from the contract file. So when a document that is part of a document package that was generated elsewhere in RMS is deleted from the contract file rather than from within that document package itself, an error can occur with the attachment within the document package. And that error is shown here. It's a weird error saying that the document is missing because it was deleted from the contract file. So the best practice is to delete a document from the corresponding document package rather than from the contract file. Okay, and here we're listing the PCF statuses that are shown in RMS. On this slide, we're showing the statuses that are prior to being sent. So we've got the not complete statuses, the in review statuses, and the ready to send statuses listed here. And then those are broken up into other sub statuses, I guess you could call them, for how the document was signed or if review is required and what kind of signature was added. So electronically signed or physically signed, which is where it was manually signed outside of RMS. And here we have the quote unquote sent statuses listed. So accepted in PCF is going to be a final confirmation that a document was in fact successfully sent. That's what I guess we always want to see. And then there are also some error statuses listed there. So if a document was sent without a signature that was actually required, that will be sent back and the corrections will be needed. And then also just returned from PCF with an error. PCF did not accept it and returned it, and so that error will need to be corrected and re-uploaded. So to manually add a document to the contract file, the PCF edit view will be displayed where you can add the document and edit any details as needed. So those details will include the date of the document, changing the status from not completed once you've completed adding the document and all the necessary information, a place to select how you want to add the document, and then buttons that will allow actions on the document. So we can go ahead and take a look. Actually, before I start this demo, I'm going to review this slide real quick. So please note if the official document is not entered into the contract file folder correctly, there is no way to remove it from the database. A corrected document will need to be re-added and then sent to PCF again. So let's jump into the demo. Okay, so we are in contract file, and if I select add, I am going to make an arbitrary section selection, but this is where you would select a section for adding the contract file document. And so we have two different options on how to add a document. We can either select a document, which will bring up your file explorer, and you can select the document from there. Or we can click on Generate Document, and this will bring up RMS's Word template selection lookup. And this is going to contain all of the word selections that are available in RMS to use. So if I make arbitrary selection again. So after I've added a document, all of these buttons become enabled. So, but it does depend on how you add the document. Since I generated this document from a Word template that is available within RMS, I can click on this Edit Document button, and it will open the document for me. Since it is a Word template, it will open it up in Word, and I can make edits here. Oops. Click on the Save button and exit out of that. And then RMS will prompt you to add the edited document to the RMS database. Click Yes. And then if I go in and view the document again, you'll see that it did maintain the edits that I made. I'll leave that again. And so remove document, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. If you want to remove the document, you can click there. And then clicking on the Save Document, again, will bring up your File Explorer if you'd like to save the generated document to your file system. So I'll go ahead and remove the document so that I can show this other Select Document button. So I'll select a document and I'll click on my test PDF. And so you'll see that these buttons here, some of them are enabled, but you'll notice that the Edit Document button is not enabled. Since the document came from an external source that is not RMS, you will not be able to edit that document using RMS. If the document needs to be edited, just go back to whatever document editing system was used and edit it there, and then you can remove it and re-add it here. So to sign a document, you can click on this Sign Document button and follow the prompts for the screen to add the signature. So I'll leave this signature position as is. Finish. Enter my PIN. And so you'll see that more buttons have been disabled. You've signed the document, so it can't be removed. And then to complete the document, you'll notice that the status still says not completed. To complete it, we'll click on this completed button. And if it does need to be sent to PCF, you'll click on this Send to PCF button. All right. So to wrap this section up there, we've added some common errors experienced with contract file or PCF and some guidance we'd like to provide for those errors. So first, if there is no PCF cabinet set up, documents will not be sent to PCF. So please make sure that prior to attempting to send anything to PCF that the appropriate PCF cabinets are set up, cabinet or cabinets. Once sent, documents cannot be recalled from PCF. If corrections are needed, create a new document package where it's applicable and make the updates or edits and then resend to PCF by completing the new document package. Document packages must be completed for documents to be sent to PCF. Simply signing documents will not complete them enough to get them sent and transferred to PCF. And also, we'd like to just mention that the best practice for completing and sending documents to PCF is not from within the contract file. So the method that should be used is wherever the respective document package is residing is where it should be completed. Okay, and one other thing about PCF, it seems that once a year we have an outage that is at a higher level than we can control. And we have to push in tickets to various teams to troubleshoot the transmission of data to PCF. So when that happens and after the issue is mitigated, it may take some time for the PCF data to get caught up in its transmissions. So us here at the RMS Support Center, we do send out notifications to let you know about these issues so you can be informed and so you can inform your users. Okay, and that's our section on paperless contract file, or PCF. So I'd like to pause real quick and see if there's any questions that need to be answered or asked.
So there's a question in the chat, and the question is, are there issues with sending documents in the contract file? No, there's not issues sending documents in the contract file. Just note that if you don't put it in the right place, it may not get to the correct cabinet inside of PCF. You'll note when you try to add a document to the to the contract file that it's going to ask you various different questions about what type of document it is to make sure it gets put to the right place. Some of that can be confusing, so that could be why. Let's see, it says we have documents that modules do not exist for files like contract closeout checklist, BCF letter point. Send these files to contract file. Yeah, so yeah. If you have documents that don't have any document packages anywhere else, it's not an issue to send it through the contract file. They just need to make sure you put it in the right location by choosing the correct things. Can you bring up your RMS with the contract file so we can kind of describe that a little bit better?
Yes, will do. Okay.
Okay, so if you go ahead and click on, go ahead and click on Add. And then here is that list of things. And what you're going to really want to look at is the right-hand column. Let me zoom in so I can actually read that. Zoom, where's my zoom button? Yeah, so that right-hand column, the document folder, is kind of what you're looking for as to find out where you're going to be placing this in the PCF cabinet. So it would be a good idea to familiarize yourself with these document folders based off of what other documents are, so that way you'll know where it's going to go in PCF when you put it in there. The document title will also help you, but most of that is going to be for things that are already in RMS. So for the checklist, closeout checklist, that may not be in here. You'll just have to figure out which location you want to put it in and choose the correct option. Does that answer the question? Excellent.
Are there any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you need to. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. All right, so picking back up on document packages. So a completed document package is the end goal of every module in RMS. They're typically created after the completion of data entry of a record. The system will create a new document package and add a PDF copy of the respective form for the contractor to sign and submit to the government. Some document packages are completed differently, and that will be reviewed throughout this course. As mentioned previously, completing a document package will send the documents to PCF. Until that point, nothing in the document package will have been sent. Okay, so here we have a preview of the top of the document package screen. So multiple types of documents can be uploaded into RMS as shown here, but each attachment cannot exceed 250 megabytes in size. Keep in mind that that is per document, not for the document package in its entirety. So we will review this in a demo after this section, but to sign the document, select the document to be signed, click on the Sign Selected Documents, and continue with that process to complete the signing. So for some documents, a predefined signature is already available in RMS to use. For example, for basic change documents or BCDs, RFIs, ENG93s for payments, QA and QC daily reports, and the ENG 4025s for transmittals. If you would like there to be another signature, those can be added in the document signature positions module from the district office menu. And so here we've kind of shown how to do that as well. Or excuse me, here we have shown how to do that as well. So again, we will review how to add these in a demo, but quick preview. Here are the types of parameters that can be set within the signature position screen. You can specify the position and the page number for the signature, as well as what type of signature it is, government, contractor, or shared between the two. And to make this a default signature for the district, click on the Make Default button. Also, within the document signature positions selection view, all of the signature positions for the district will be listed here. So there are some that cannot be edited or deleted. We have some standard location type positions generated by RMS. And then there are also fixed positions which are programmed into RMS as well. So these positions cannot be edited or deleted. Also, if a document was signed outside of RMS and that signed document is uploaded into RMS, you can use these two checkboxes, depending on whether it's a contractor signature or a government signature, to show that they have already been signed outside of RMS. So selecting those checkboxes for manually signed will change the signature status of the document to a tested signature attached. So once everything has been signed, or in some cases reviewed and signed, the document package can then be completed by clicking on the Complete Package button, and the documents will then be transferred to PCF. When a contractor sends a document to the government for review, their screen will have a Submit for Review button. When the government receives it, they can either accept the package or return the package to the contractor for corrections, if those are needed. Once the government hits that Accept Package button, that is similar to the Complete Package button, and so the document package will be completed and the documents will be sent to PCF. If the document package is returned, that document package can be reopened by the contractor to make corrections, or a new document package can be created to submit the corrections separately from the incorrect document package. And so before we get into any questions, I'd like to review kind of everything I just went over. So go back to contract selection. Okay, so first up, we will go to, not that one, District Library, and go to the Document Signature Positions module from that menu. And as I mentioned, all of the all of the document signature positions for the district are listed here. So I will show. So this is one of the system signature positions. And so if I try and edit this, it'll open the screen just for me to see all the details, but I cannot choose anything. I can make it default, but I cannot edit any of this here. And then if I try to delete it, RMS will show this pop-up letting you know that this cannot be deleted. And so I'll add one that we can use for this demo. Just to make sure. And so again, if I want to make this the default signature position for the district, I can click on that button. And then here is where you can select which page to print the signature on. So you can choose the first page, and then you can select or edit the offset that you would like. So Oops. Print on last page. So you can enter a value in here. And same with the last page. You can also specify a page number. And then you can also add a new page after the last page to add that signature on its own. You can select what kind of position you want the signature to show on: top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. Then you can also specify the position with more detail here. I'm not sure of the units for these values.
I think they're inches or
Okay.
dots, but I'm not sure. You kind of have to
Okay,
play with it to find out where it's going to be placed.
Okay, got it. And then if finally, you can choose if it's a contractor signature position, a shared signature position, so contractor and government can both use it, or just government signature position. So I'll go ahead and choose specific page number. I'll go ahead and choose 1, and I will do the bottom right. And just to make sure. Okay, and so my signature position is now available for use within the district. And so next, I'll take us into a contract to look at the document package. And so to do this, for the demo, I'm going to just use the correspondence module. And then I have a draft correspondence ready here. I'll go into the document package. And so I have an incomplete document package here. Nothing has been signed. Only one document has been added. So if I'd like to sign it, I'll just select it and sign it and follow the prompts here. And then I'll go ahead and look for that signature position I just created. There it is. And I'll go ahead and just view it real quick so that we can see that the signature position added at the bottom right, like I asked. So, okay, and since this is a letter to the contractor from the correspondence module, so I've signed it, and I'm going to complete the package to send these documents to PCF. And the document is ready to send to PCF. And I'll send that letter. And this will complete sending it. This is more for the correspondence part, but next I'd like to go over adding this in contractor mode so that we can see the difference in the types of buttons that show up. So again, I've got another draft correspondence here with an incomplete document package. So I've added another test PDF. So if I sign these, and then actually I could just show manually signing. So this document was manually signed before I added it. And then this submit for review button is going to be displayed on contractor mode whenever sending documents to the government for review. So if I click on that, yes, I am wanting to proceed. And again, this is more for correspondence, but I will change this from draft not complete to sent to the government. And then we will go back to government mode. And I've got one received, which is the one I just sent. And if I go into the document package, I'll see the 2 buttons for return for corrections and accept package. So if I sign this, again, if we select to sign the selected documents, follow the same pattern. and finishing it. We can then accept the package or return the package for corrections. From then on, the contractor can make the corrections, as I mentioned earlier, by either creating a new document package or making the corrections in the same document package. And then once I'm the government, I've reviewed this document from the contractor, again, select that accept package button, and then a batch process will be performed later to get those documents transferred to PCF. All right.
There's a couple of different document packages where you don't actually have to click the approve and the contractor doesn't have to do the submit. That would be the transmittal. And I think for government anyways, the QA reports, because you can get all that taken care of in the multi-sign if you're using it. But with the transmittals, you don't need to go into the document package to complete it. It's one of the few that is that way. Most of them are going to be where the contractor is going to have to submit it to the government, and the government is going to have to accept it in order to get it sent to PCF. Also note, when you click on that accept button, we have had a couple people who have sent us emails be like, hey, I sent this to PCF. Why is it not there? And it's the same day that they sent. So it's not a instantaneous send. It's something that takes time. We have a batch process that does this. So you have to give it 24 to 72 hours before it will actually get sent and actually put into PCF. So if it's not there after 72 hours, then give us a call. We can check and make sure that everything is working like it's supposed to be.
Going back to our presentation. So that was a short demo of the document packages. I think it was kind of high level. So are there any questions or discussion that needs to be held? I'll check the Q&A real quick.
There's no questions in the Q&A at this time.
Okay, got it. So we will go ahead and move on. Okay, next up, we will review daily reporting in RMS for quality assurance and quality control on the contractor side. So to start, we will look at the office policy for QA daily reports. Sometimes an error may need to be resolved on a daily report, a QA daily report, but the lock policy does not allow for the necessary edits to be made. If this is the case, then if needed, that can be changed here. So I'll go back into RMS and show that in the local office and then the office policy. You will need to select which office as far as I know. So I'll select this one, go to the office policy. And each of these selections will allow different things, obviously. This selection will allow any completed QA daily report to be edited. And then you can also select to only allow the most recently completed daily report to be edited. And then this second option here, you can specify how many days from a daily report completion where something can be edited. Sorry, excuse me. So editing of daily reports created within 3 days of the most recently QA daily report in this instance can still be edited. I'll change this back before I leave. And so again, that is in the local office menu. Please remember to just follow district policy when it comes to this and consider how any changes you make here is going to impact the entire office. So QA daily reports are generated when the QA representation visits the construction site and reports all of the activities going on there. And the QC daily reports are generated by contractors to enter the status of work activities that are ongoing or completed on the work site. Okay, so here is the information that is filled out on the QC daily reports by contractors. So we have the weather, QC narratives, QC and QA deficiencies, QC requirements that are being tracked and can be seen if they're completed here, prep/initial inspections, activities started/finished dates, contractors on site entry, labor and equipment hours, and mishap reporting. And here is the information filled out for the QA daily reports. Again, we have the weather and the narratives there. Also the deficiencies, QA tests, which is going to record and maintain the results of any QC tests performed. QA final follow-ups, QC requirement verification, labor interviews, and again, mishap reporting. So as the information in these tabs is filled out and completed, this screen to the right is going to update with that. Okay. So if needed, different types of reports can be added for the district in the QA/QC reports module of the district library menu. And before we get into a demo, we'll take a look at what that screen looks like. So when adding a report type, QA and QC narratives can also be added depending on the report type. So right here, we have a note, dredge report types will only allow the addition of QC narratives. And we'll go into the application again and look at that. In the district library. So here we are in the district library menu, and then this QA/QC reports module is where we can add report types. So if we click on add here, I will stick with civil QA/QC. Okay, and then here's the screen. If you enter into a report type that's already been created or part of the system, all of the QA narrative titles and QC narrative titles added for that report type are going to be listed here. And so if we add one, testing, I'll leave this safety related checkbox unchecked. And so that will be available to select from whenever you're creating a QA daily report as one of the narratives to select. And same goes for the QC narrative titles. So in this report type, these are going to be the narratives available for selection. Okay, so once all of the necessary information has been added to the QA report or the QC report, the report completed checkbox is going to be the trigger that generates the QA report in a new document package. From there, the daily report can be signed and the document package can then be completed. So going back into our application, I'm going to get into my contract real quick. Okay, so we'll go to the QA/QC module and go to QA daily reports, and I have one ready. So some information has been entered here. As you can see, this was a very uneventful day. And if I check this report completed box, let's see what happens. We'll see that a new document package is automatically generated. And if we go into the document package, we'll see that the QA daily report has been generated within that document package for us. And so we can sign this as well. And I will leave this to the default just for the purpose of this demo. And then once I've signed it, I'm going to complete the document package, and that should send the documents to PCF and complete this document package for the daily report. And so real quick, before we get out of the QA daily report, so there are some cases when multiple reports can be signed at once, and instead of being forced to go into each and every individual report as I just did to sign it, the multi-sign daily reports button is available on the QA daily report selection view, so that multiple reports can be signed at once by either the QA representation or the project engineer, or if those are the same people, then they can complete this operation. So I'll go back to the application, back out of here, and this is the button where you can multi-sign daily reports right here. If you click that, so you can either select this button select a report and go ahead and select this button. Or if you just want to see the project engineer reports, you can click on the tiles at the top to only see a certain subset of the reports that need to be signed. So I'll select a few here, click on sign as project engineer, and it'll give you a preview of the document. And then select yes. Verify with your PIN or password. So this is just really a consolidated, easier way to sign multiple reports rather than going into every single one and signing them that way. So if you're the QA rep, click on this, select documents, and click on that sign as QA rep. And then if you're the project engineer, do the same thing, except click on this sign as project engineer button. Okay, and wrap this section up. Here are some common errors and guidance on daily reports. So one tip is to definitely ensure that contractors are aware of their contract setup as it relates to QC daily reports. If activity start and finish dates have to be entered on the QC daily reports, please make sure that the contractors are aware of that. Those must be entered on the QC daily reports when the contract is set up that way. And on the second part, corrected/concurred deficiencies. So this error was that the date corrected was not displaying, since the deficiency having been marked as concurred by the government before the contractor had marked it corrected. So this is due to just being in the wrong view and clicking the wrong thing at the wrong time. So just verify that you're on the correct view whenever, if you're the government reviewing deficiencies. Okay, and now we will open this up for any further questions that anyone may have. Okay, so now we'll review RFIs, or requests for information, and correspondence. So starting with RFIs, here we're providing an overview of RFIs. These are used as a system of record for official questions and responses between the government and the contractor. Also, these do function both ways. So the government can create an RFI for the contractor, and the contractor can create an RFI to send to the government. Key items included in an RFI include the information requested, the date that information is being requested, the contractor's recommendation, if the contractor has created it, the answer to the question of will it result in a cost or schedule impact to the contract, and then any supporting attachments such as contract drawings, sketches, photos. Since RFIs often lead to RFPs, or requests for proposal, and other contractual actions that may include modifications to the contract, it's really important to maintain a record of these requests and answers. RMS does that for you. So now let's take a look at that in the application. I'll get to my contract real quick. And I will also be showing both contractor mode and government mode for this. So here is contractor mode. It can be found in the administration module right here. So we have the several tiles at the top to filter the list of RFIs that you're looking at. This contract does not have any, so nothing is listed here. So if we add one, take a look at what information is put into the screen. So for the contractor RFI, we would put in the date, so today's date or a different date if needed. The requester's name, a required date. You can add a link to the subcontractor if needed and check these boxes to signify a potential cost or schedule impact. The RFI subject, relevant specification sections, a feature of work if needed. You can make that selection here. Any drawings or details, and then the summary of the information requested. And then also the contractor's recommendation. And you can add any supporting documents if needed as well. And then if we look at the government side for a request for information, if we add one, you'll notice that a pop-up appears saying that contractor RFIs have to be added by the contractor, unless the government is allowed to enter contract data under contract setup. But yes, you can proceed to just creating a government RFI. So we will, it will default to the contractor RFI screen, but if you just click on this tab here, this is where the government RFI can be set up. So it's got some similar fields to the contractor RFI screen, a received date. If this is in response to an RFI, then this answered date can be selected. Again, if this is a response to an RFI, that receipt acknowledged by can be added there. Who prepared the answer, and what the government response is. Okay, secondary RFI reviewers can also be added here, and further details can be added for that reviewer here. So if I add, I don't know, testing user, test. And then that this information here can be specified for the secondary response. And again, document packages are available. The area for document packages are available to add any supporting documents. We've got a shared document package, which the contractor and the government will both be able to access, and then just strictly government-only RFI document package. Okay. And then for RFIs, some standard text can be added to be able to select to include in RFIs. So in the district library menu, the standard text module is available to add those. So let me go back into the application and we'll go back to contract selection, go to district library, and click on standard text. And you'll see that standard text can be added for several documents, the BCD, the SF30, the NG93, and the RFI. So if we were to add one, we will take a look at using it in the actual RFI. Testing, train the trainer. And this Okay, so we've entered our statement. We'll click the back button to save all of the changes. Go back to contract selection. Go back into our contract. Request for information, and I'll reopen this draft RFI here. And so if we select in this, this notepad pen button, this is where you can insert that standard text. So we'll click here, and I'll click on my standard text I've just added. And you'll see that it went ahead and added the statement for that standard text. And if needed, you can add more. These are more details. Okay, and that is how you add standard text to an RFI. We kind of reviewed that process on this slide as well. Before we move on, let's go into completing the RFI and sending it. So I'll stick with the government RFI selection.
This one right here, if you move your mouse over the answered completed, it'll pop up with a requirement of what you got to do in order to complete out the RFI and send it. So
I need to put in these dates. We answered it on the same day, and then answer completed. And so that has sent the RFI to the contractor.
The RFI won't get sent until you do the COR ACO approved, which, by the way, if you only see answer completed and you don't see the COR ACO approved, that's because you don't have the permissions of the COR or the ACO. The reason why this was put into place, this was a policy given to us by headquarters a long time ago. They want, usually the person doing the RFI isn't the person approving it and sending it off. The contracting officer or the Corps of Engineers representative. So if you don't see that second one, that's why. You all here are district admins, so you should have the ability to see both. Just note, you've got to check that second box there for it to go off to contractor mode.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, so we'll do that, and then click back, and we'll go into our contractor mode again. So next we'll look at the correspondence submodule. These are all of the options available for which correspondence you can create in government mode. Similar to RFIs, this area facilitates communication between the government and the contractor. The screen is set up in 4 different sections: draft correspondence, sent correspondence, and received correspondence and in-house memos. And to serialize this correspondence, these letter agency codes are in RMS. The table on the slide shows the different codes and what kind of correspondence they map to. If needed, letter agency codes can also be added in the district library for external agencies if needed. So here's what adding a letter agency code looks like, and then this is a quick preview, and we'll go ahead and look at that in the application. So from contract selection, we will go into the district library again and go to letter agency codes. And so here's a list of all of the available letter agency codes for this district. If we were to add one, I'll just name it Triple T for Train the Trainer. And I'll add more details in the agency title column, or field. And then you can specify what kind of correspondence type is it, an email or a letter. And go back to save. And so now I'll kind of demo how to use that in a correspondence. So here we are in the correspondence submodule. So if we add and select a letter to other agency or letter from other agency, this option would be for just logging a letter that was received from another agency. But if we want to do a letter to the other agency, I'll search for that again, and we can select that here. And I will let them use that value. And it has created this letter to other agency using that agency code that I've entered. Okay, and once all the information has been added and any supporting documents have been added to the correspondence, the document package again can then be completed and the documents can be transferred to PCF. Okay, so I will take a look at this screen for the correspondence. So in this screen, a lot of the screens for the different types of letters are going to primarily look like this. So the letter is dated, that's going to default to the current date. It can be changed if needed. If there's an unresolved issue, this checkbox can be checked. If the letter requires an answer, also this checkbox can be checked. And then down here, if you'd like to select a letter that this letter is answered by, you can click there and make your selection of other correspondence that's been created within this contract. You can create a new letter to answer this letter by clicking this, and then you can choose between the options made available here. And then you can also select an existing letter to answer this letter. So to complete this, I'll go ahead and add a supporting document. And by that, I mean my test PDF, trusty test PDF. And then I'll sign it as we usually do for the contract, or excuse me, for the document package. And then again, completing this document package is key to getting documents to send PCF. So the documents may have been sent to PCF, but this sent status does need to be changed once you've completed, because if you just back out, it will stay in this draft tile and won't show that it's been sent or anything. So there are different statuses you can choose. You can choose just the letter is complete and somebody else needs to take action, the letter is approved, or the letter has been sent. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark it sent. This action cannot be undone. Are you sure this letter is complete? Yes. And then we go back and it has moved out of here and over here. All right. And so that wraps up the RFIs and correspondence section. So for submittals, in the district office menu, and then in the district policy module from that menu, the submittal policy defaults can be set for the district. Within the district policy screen, you'll notice a submittal policy tab, and that's where you'll be able to edit the review periods for district submittals. These are just default values that the contract will start out with, or created contracts will start out with. If needed, they can also be changed within the contract. Submittal types can also be added for use by contracts within the district. The area to do this can be found in the district library. Submittal types can be added here as desired, and submittal types that have been added can be edited or deleted. There are some standard submittal types which are built into RMS, and those cannot be edited or deleted. And those are going to show with this entry type as system-standard use wide. So let's go into the application. And we'll go to the district library menu. And go into the submittal types. So as you can see, we have mostly system generated submittal types, and then we have a few that have been added by users. So if we want to add one, we can add a number. I can't remember. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'll just add 56 to follow the last one. And you can add the abbreviated title, T, Train the Trainer. And so now this will be a submittal type that can be used by the district. Okay, next, a submittal register must also be initially created to house the submittals and track the activity for each submittal. So in the system library menu, this specification sections module is going to show all of the electronic formats that are available in RMS. That site listed here in this note will take you to the Unified Facilities Guide Specification site, where even further information on electronic specification formats can be found. So in order to set up a submittal register for a contract, you can either add all of the sections manually if you would desire to do so, and you can also select from one of these libraries that are available. Additionally, you can also take advantage of the import features available in RMS to import a submittal register. And then this view here can be used to verify all of the items that were supposed to have been imported. So real quick, I'd like to show looking at the specification sections submodule within a contract. So I'll go to a new contract here. And if we go to the Submittals module and click on the Specifications submodule, we'll see that there's no specifications set up for this contract. And so I'd like to show just selecting one of these options available. So you can choose to select, only certain sections or select all of them. I'll go ahead and just select all of them. And it will add those sections to this screen. Okay, and if I were to manually add a section, I'll add one between here. And it'll bring up this screen just to show you the information that was entered. And when we go back, we'll see that the section has been added manually. And so that was how to manually add or sort of manually add sections. Now we'll jump into kind of the importing side of adding submittals for a submittal register. So here's some information regarding Specsintact. The use of Specsintact in both military and civil contracts is mandatory as established within these listed engineering regulations and memorandum. In addition to Specsintact, RMS also has the ability to import an Excel spreadsheet for the submittal registers, which is in an unofficial data format, and we'll review that later. If needed, more than one submittal register can be created for a contract, and that can be done in contract setup under the Submittals/Schedule tab as shown here. As I mentioned previously, the submittal review periods can be edited here from the defaults if needed, and also a default government reviewer can be added or edited here as well. So a little more on Specsintact here. Specsintact is an automated software program that RMS can use to help with preparing standardized facility construction specifications. The Specsintact file can be used to import information into RMS submittal registers. So before we jump into the demo, I will review what the screen for the Specsintact files look like. When you click on the Import Specsintact submodule, this is the screen you will be greeted with. Of course, this screen has had Specsintact files added. So when you add one, or when you click to add one, it will pull up your File Explorer and you'll be able to select the Specsintact file from there. And then if you just want to edit or delete Specsintact files that are already there, you can do that by selecting them and then using the edit and delete buttons. And after importing a Specsintact file, this is the screen that will show you'll be able to look at all of the different information that's imported. So you can look at all of the submittal items that are coming in, only the sections of the submittal items and only reviewers, and then you can also preview the Specsintact file by clicking that tab there. So now we will go back into the application and take a look at how this works. So if we want to import a Specsintact file, we will go to the Import-Export module, click on Import Specsintact file. This contract has not had any Specsintact files input yet. And so I have a sample Specsintact file ready to go, and I'll click Open. And so here is the Specsintact file that I'm importing. Again, you can just look at all of the submittal items in this Specsintact file. That's going to be, this is a preview of what will be imported. So nothing has been imported yet. This is to kind of verify the information that you're about to import. Here are the sections within the Specsintact file. No reviewers yet. And then the actual Specsintact files. Specsintact files are text files, so they'll look like that. So one thing to note here, this is going to be updated in the next release as well. These options to merge into register or replace register. The users will not have this replace register option. This will only be available to administrators. Again, this will be in the next release. So that next release is planned for the 30th of March. So just wanted to make you guys aware that that change is incoming. So since we didn't have a Specsintact file or a submittal register for this contract, for now, it doesn't matter which option I choose, but I'll just go ahead and select replace register. Okay, and then again, it's showing all of the information, giving you a preview of what the Specsintact file is importing. And then finally, you can click import data as shown. Okay, and again, it'll give you, once your import is complete, it'll give you a summary of what has been imported. Oops, so we'll go back. And we see that this Specsintact file has been imported. And if we go to our submittal register, we'll see those same submittals here as well. So now we'll take a look at the actual submittal register and the setup of the screens. So here we're showing the top part of the screen where you can do a lot of filtering based on what type of submittal you would like to look at. So the blue box is going to show which register you are currently in. If you have more than one register, you can click here to toggle between different registers. You can also filter items based on these three criteria: outstanding items, items in review, and completed items. And then the boxes to the right of that will allow you to filter even further based on the time frame of the due date. So if it's overdue, due in less than 7 days or equal to 7 days, or wait, due in more or equal to 7 days, and then all. And this is the middle part of the screen. We will provide a demo of this, but just to give a preview of it, we'll review these slides. So here you can double click on an item or select it and click on the edit button to edit anything if needed. We also show here how to add a submittal and what kind of data will be shown in that screen. All right, so we'll go back into our Submittal Register screen. Again, this is from the Specsintact file that I've imported. So let's say we just forgot to add a submittal in that Specsintact file before we imported, so we can go ahead and add another one. You will just select the section that some new submittal item needs to be added to. You can change this item number if needed. Otherwise, it will automatically populate. And then if an item number extension is needed, that can be edited here as well. And so when adding a submittal item, there's a lot of different information that can be added here. A description. If it needs to be linked to an activity, you can choose from those activities here if there are activities as well. You can specify the paragraph this submittal item is associated to, as well as the drawing. If the submittal item is linked to an activity, that start date will be added here. And then if you'd like to add lag or lead times or to that start date, then that can be added here. Specify a procurement period and days to review. You can also select the classification of the submittal. And you can assign a primary government reviewer here as well. And the submittal type, so if we want to select the one that we created earlier, we can do that. And that's the information that you can add when adding a submittal type. Okay, and something else about the Submittal Register Edit View is if you'd like to work on multiple submittals at a time rather than going into each and every single one and editing them that way, you can make those changes to multiple items in the Grid Edit View. So if we go back into the application, this button here will bring up the Grid Edit View. And you can click in these fields to change the information as needed or as desired. So we'll just change this, add this. And once we've finished making any changes we want on multiple submittal items, just click on this Save Changes button at the top. And the items that you've edited here will be updated, as you can see here in the Submittal Register view. So submittals can also be imported into the contract as well. So another upcoming, this is not in production yet, but this is an upcoming change that will be made to the import submittal screen, similar to the Specsintact screen. The override existing submittals option will only be available to Office and District Administrator users. Non-admin users will not have access to this option following the potential release of our next release on which is planned for March 30th. So the screen to the left is what will show for the users without any admin privileges. And that's this section to the right will continue to show for any office and district administrators. So we can go ahead and demo that as well. I do have a sample file ready. I just need to get to a different contract real quick. So we won't be in the submittals area anymore. We will move over to the import export module just real quick for this demo. So if we go to the import submittals screen, so this is production. So as you can see, these options are still here. To start the process of importing submittals, you will, if you do not already have a template available, some people may use these often, so they may have a template saved on their machine. You can click on this button and it will download a zip file so that you can grab a template out of. And a sample template with some information provided is also part of that zip file. Here you can select which register you would like to import into if you have multiple registers. And to upload the file, the template file for this operation, you'll just click here. Oops, 1 second. I will go ahead and merge. Okay. And so here is my template file, and I'll show what that looks like after I've completed this. And so a total of 3 items were successfully imported. So we'll go back, go to our submittal, look at our submittal register, and further submittal item. These were the submittal items in my sample template file. I'll go ahead and show that here. So this is what the submittal register input form looks like. You'll need to enter the contract number, the delivery order number, and the title and location, and then you'll edit these areas down here as needed. So we've got this one submittal here, and the type of submittal we've selected other by placing an X in the cell. The classification, FIO, again by placing an X in the cell, and the reviewing office. So real quick, I'll get back to my presentation. And again, we've added an image of that sample Excel template file. And another thing I want to note is whenever you click on the button cell in this file, it will bring up these instructions. It may be a little easier if I do it here, or it may look a little better. So I'll do this. And so if you click in there or right click, or just click, yeah. Or even if you just hover over it, those instructions for filling out this form are going to be displayed.
Something to note about that file. For everything that you're entered in column A, we have seen a number of users, they will copy and paste from another Excel file, and some of those submittal item numbers will show up as dates instead of staying as a general text. And that's because they're copying and pasting. So if your contractor comes to you, or if another of your government reps come to you and say, hey, I've imported this in, that is because the formatting is incorrect because they copied and pasted. So it was something to keep in mind with this particular thing. When you're training your government to train your contractors, let them know if they're going to be using this before they paste anything in the file that they're copying it from. Make sure it's set up as text, not general, because when it pastes over in here, it will be a date, and they can't edit that. So that's something that they need to be aware of when you're sending them that information.
All right, and so once you've finished adding all of the information, you'll be able to import as I showed earlier. So moving on from the submittal register, we will now review the transmittal log. This area maintains the record of submittals made and their statuses. A transmittal can contain more than one submittal item, and the blue tiles at the top are going to show this filtered lists for what type of transmittal. So there are pending government receipt, transmittal in review, pending contractor acknowledgement, and completed transmittals. In contractor mode, these tiles will look a little different since they send the transmittal. So they'll also have an additional tile right here called draft transmittals. So a submittal consists of the ENG 4025 transmittal document, which identifies all the submittal items and their supporting documents within the transmittal. The first step in reviewing a submittal is the intake process of the transmittal form, the ENG form 4025-R, or ENG 4025, as a lot of folks like to refer to it as. So here we're looking at the transmittals in review screen. When you select a transmittal in review, a summary of the submittal items included in that transmittal and any secondary reviewers will be displayed here below. When you open a transmittal to review it, this screen will be displayed. Lots of actions can be taken here, including setting the QA code for the transmittal, setting the primary reviewer, adding government or contractor remarks, and any secondary reviewer remarks. And this is also where the document package can be accessed. As Jen mentioned earlier, you don't need to create it, and we'll show that when we get to the demo. So this is just a quick overview of the process of setting a primary reviewer. The default user for this field can be set up in contract setup, as we reviewed earlier as well. So if a transmittal has errors in need of corrections, a button is available for the government to send the transmittal back to the contractor for corrections. Any items receiving a QA code of C, E, G, or X will require a resubmittal. So when this happens, the contractor can either create a new document package, make the corrections in the new package, and send that new package, or just edit the existing document package and then resend that. So here is where we will start our demo for this. Let me get to my contract in. Okay, I just received a correction on what I stated earlier. No QA code will be applied if the return to contractor for corrections button is selected. Okay, so I'll start in contractor mode. So as I mentioned, the transmittals are sent from the contractor to the government, so they have an additional draft transmittals tile. So I'll go ahead and go into here. This is an incomplete transmittal that is getting ready to send to the government. So the date prepared has been automatically selected. One attachment has been added for review. Contractor remarks have been added to the government. And so to complete this transmittal and get it sent to the government, these buttons down here are used. So if you'd like, you can create and digitally sign a 4025 all at once, or you can manually attach a signed 4025 from outside of RMS. So if you'd like to create and digitally sign the 4025, you can check this checkbox to include a digital signature title. And if we click on that, you can enter that title here. And RMS provides a pop-up letting you know what's going to happen after you complete this operation. Digitally signing the ENG 4025 will complete the data entry portion of this transmittal. Transmittal data will be read-only for contractor mode and no additional changes will be allowed. Do you want to proceed? Yes, I do. Enter some authentication. Okay, and as RMS mentioned, none of this can be edited now, and it has been sent to the government for review. So now if we go into government mode of this contract, go into our transmittal log. Before a transmittal goes to review, the government has to receive it. So here we'll enter a date. We received it today. And once we click out of that, it'll automatically go to transmittals in review. And if we click on it to review, as I mentioned, there are a lot of actions to take here. You can enter the date received by government, when a review is due, if you're not the person providing the review, or if you are. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is filled out once you complete the transmittal. Is that correct?
That will be, yeah, that'll be done on its own automatically. You don't want to put anything in there at this time because the process is to use one of the two buttons on the main page, and that will fill out that date as well as complete the transmittal at the same time.
Got it. Okay. Okay, and here is the here are the attachments to review. We can see the contract remarks to the government. We can also add government remarks to the contractor. We can also, the secondary reviewer or yourself can also add any remarks from them as well. And again, we can go into the document package and just look at the 4025, make sure it's signed by the contractor. And then again, these two buttons are going to help complete the transmittal at this time. So you can click on a QA code. And to apply and sign the 4025 digitally, you can do that here. And then also to manually attach a signed 4025, you can click that button here. So I'll go ahead and click on this one, authenticate. And this transmittal is completed. It has been sent back to the contractor. As you can see, this date was filled in automatically when we completed it. And it's going to move to the pending contractor acknowledgement tile. And then if we go in here, click our refresh button, we'll also see that it shows up there in contractor mode as well. And similarly to how the government does it, we can enter a date for when it was received. And as soon as we click out, it will move to completed transmittals for both contractor mode. Okay, there we go. And now it is in the completed transmittals tile for government mode as well. Oh, okay. Also, to look at the return to contractor for corrections. So we have another transmittal review. It's very old, but we were spending a lot of time on it to figure out why we can return it to the contractor for corrections. So if we click on this button, RMS will give you another notice. If you return this transmittal to the contractor, you will not be able to edit/view the transmittal until the contractor resubmits it. Return this transmittal, yes. And so it's moved out of transmittals in review and into the pending contractor acknowledgement. And we'll go back
now
to...
it's in draft mode on contractor side.
Oh, yes, yes, correct, sorry. So it has, yes. And so it was this one here.
Now hit your refresh button.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. Here we go. We can click in there as the contractor. And we can see the document package status says returned for corrections. So again, we can either add another one and correct whatever the errors are and resend it that way, or we can go back into here, into the document package, and fix up the report or the document that needs corrections, resubmit it for review. I think you can either select, do you need to select the submit for review button, or go back into this?
Go back to the main page and recreate. It'll send it and do everything again.
Okay.
This is one of the few places that you do not want to actually do that, because if you do that, it will be okay. RMS will still create, but they'll do another document package. So you'll have 2 document packages at that point.
Okay, got it, got it. So we'll go ahead and do that. Again, authenticate. All right, and then go back and we'll see that it has shown back up in government mode after they have resubmitted. All right. And so that concluded our demo for the transmittal log. Please make sure and ask a question in the Q&A section if you have any. Next, we'll look at the Submittal Assignments submodule. So this area provides an alternate means for assigning activities to submittal items. This can be done one item at a time, or for multiple items simultaneously assigned to the same activity.
Can we get a quick overview of what you still have on the agenda, please?
Yes, so the remaining items left on the agenda is going to be the submittal assignments, and then after we're finished with the submittal assignments, we move into the import and export module and just review the capabilities that are available there. And then that is our last topic for the day. Okay, if no demo is needed for this area, we can just quickly review the options available. So in the preliminary screen, you can edit the primary reviewer and the review days for submittals. And then here are the options available. So we have assign primary reviewer for any unassigned submittals, and you can specify those submittals here. You can also choose to assign a primary reviewer / office to an invalid office. You can select this option to assign a primary reviewer or an office to an invalid office. And the way an invalid office may have been put in is after importing a Specsintact file or an Excel template file. You can also replace a reviewer with another user in this option. This option will allow you to replace any invalid users. So perhaps a user who was assigned as the primary reviewer was removed for RMS or somehow otherwise made invalid, then that can be corrected here. And if there are no invalid reviewers, then this screen will show. This option allows you to set the government review period for different classifications of submittals. So if you were to select one of these checkboxes and had this set all 0 review periods to however many days, when you click this next button, you'll be able to specify how many days. And same with this selection down here, if you would just like to replace the amount of days with a different value. And finally, if you need to assign a submittal to an activity, then that can be done here as well. Okay, so that wraps up our submittals section. Are there any questions? Check the Q&A. Okay, I do not see any questions coming up. So we'll move on to the import and export module. First up is the import P2 option. This process is automated by a computer batch job in RMS. and no action is required by the user for this. All USACE contracts are linked to B2. Next, we have the Import QA Deficiencies option. This allows users to import QA deficiencies all at once as a batch rather than having to manually enter the information that can just be imported. So in the screen, there is an option to download a template similar to import submittals, and this template will allow you to specify the details of the data you are importing. So as you can see here, this template looks really similar to the Submittal Register input form. We've got all these different columns for you to specify the information that you'd like imported for the QA deficiencies. As with any Excel template provided by RMS for the purposes of importing, when you click on the red button cell in the spreadsheet or hover over it, instructions for filling out the sheet are provided. When you finish adding all of the information, you'll save this file to your computer and upload it back into RMS using this Import Deficiency Items from Excel button. Next is the Import Real Property area, also very similar to the Import QA Deficiencies. The type of information that you'll be inputting into the template that you can download for the import is just a little different. So you can see the difference in columns, facility, category code, construction, and all of this other information for the real property items. Also, again, you can click on or hover this cell that is labeled button and see instructions for how to fill out the spreadsheet. Okay, and next, this area is similar but also different in that you don't require an Excel input file to use for the import. This is all happening within RMS, so no external downloading or uploading will be needed. Here's where you can copy data from another RMS contract into the current contract. So you can do that by selecting these checkboxes. You can use these buttons at the top to check all or to reset your selection and uncheck all. And once you've finished making those selections, you can copy the selected data into the current contract. The Export Mods List submodule allows users to export a list of all the modifications for the contract. So executing the Export to File option will export the data into a standard text file that can be used later. Guidance is provided in the pop-ups in RMS for how to use those. And then if you choose the Export to Clipboard option, it will be basically like saving the data to memory, copy and paste. It'll be a copy and paste action to where you can paste that information into a document of your choice or into the document that needs the information. Here's an example of what the export mods looks like. It is a text file, so this is what it usually looks like. And finally, we'll look at the document package export screen. So this module allows the operations needed to bring external data out of RMS, RMS data externally exported. So there are lots of selections here to make. And once you click on Get Documents, that information will be exported to the user's computer from RMS. This just makes exporting multiple documents or document packages from RMS a little easier. Okay. If there are any questions, we can do those now. This brings us to the end of our presentation as well. All right, if there are no questions, we hope you guys were able to stick around. If not, this has all been recorded and we will post it to our training YouTube within a few days.
And from the TMO standpoint as well, we will send out a link when that is posted to YouTube, and it will also be on the KM portal.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I'll just turn it over to TMO and see if they have anything to add before we can all get out of here.
Nothing to add from our side. Thank you guys for the demos.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending.